Hey, listen up. We got another episode of Kracks, featuring the crack man himself, Bill Krackomberger, and our co-host, Jon Orlando, straight from Las Vegas. Kracks is your ticket inside the world of sports betting, with tips, picks, special guests, and more. Only on WSN.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Kracks. Jon Orlando here, and I've got the crack man himself, Mr. Bill Krackomberger. This week went by fast, Bill. I feel like I just saw you, but here you are again.
It did. Here we are. And these weeks do go by fast, especially when you have a lot of sports. And even though the Super Bowl's over, we still have a lot of sports, NBA, college basketball, of course, golf, UFC. Yeah, they're flying by.
I don't know about you, but we teased the guest for the past week on who we had on the show today, and I've been getting bombarded with text messages, DMs, and all kinds of even phone calls from friends asking who's on the show this week. So I figure I'd let the cat out of the bag early right now, so that this way they're hooked. Not they wouldn't be hooked regardless, because I mean, who doesn't want to watch you and me? But anyway, we've got arguably the big topic is always GOAT talk across all sports, right? Arguably, we've got the poker GOAT on the show today. If you want to go by bracelets and earnings, that kind of exact, hard to discredit Phil Hellmuth as not being the poker GOAT, wouldn't you say? It's
so hard to say with all of these people that are playing poker today, and all these Europeans and people from overseas, and all these kids that grow up with the internet and multiple tables they're playing. It's so hard to believe that we can actually say, and I'm saying it, I think Phil Hellmuth is the best tournament poker player in the world.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. You know, I was actually telling the guys, our producers, before you joined today, we were talking about having Phil, and because we've obviously been excited about it. And I was telling them I'm real good friends with Randall Emmett. He's a movie producer. He produced The Irishman, which was nominated for Best Picture last year. He did Lone Survivor with Mark Wahlberg, so on and so forth. And Randall loves playing poker, and so whenever he comes to Vegas, he plays on TV a lot on the Poker Go, the shows that are on like the Poker Go app. I can't think of the name of the show for some reason, but so I go, and he knows I love poker, so I go and I watch them shoot a couple episodes of the poker show. And Phil just happened to be on it. And then after they were done taping, this is over at Aria. They're in a studio that they made over there. And then after they're done taping, they go into the actual poker room and like play a cash game in like the private room. I think it's poker room number 1 over there at Aria. And Randall's back there with Phil and a bunch of other like poker greats, and they're all playing cash games. I think the minimum buy-in is something like 50 grand. Most people have about 300 grand in front of them in chips, and there's maybe 1 or 2 people that have like literally over $1 million right there on the table on a random Wednesday in the summer in Vegas. You got to love this town, right? And
oh my God, life-changing money on the table, sure.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I was telling the guys before you came on today for sound check, I was telling the guys, I watched Phil take a pot down, bluffing the whole way, and then calling a river bet with queen high, literally like a $200,000 pot or something ridiculous with queen high. Like, what could he possibly have thought? Like, he didn't give the other guy any credit. I mean, you want to talk about being able to read someone, like that's literally saying to your opponent, like, I know you have absolutely nothing, and not even ace high, not even king high. He took a pot down, calling a river bet with queen high. Phil Hellmuth is a legend.
Wow, that's unbelievable. I mean, the guy could have had ace 5 and beat him, So
correct, right?
Just hearing that.
The 2 of hearts that was on the board. He might have been holding a 2 of spades. Maybe he's got ace deuce. At least he's got a 2. Nothing. Like just to call a river bet with that much money in the pot, when all you've got is you're going to show I've got queen high, and confidently you've called, knowing that that's good is beyond next level.
Awesome. So I'm really looking forward to this today. It's fun. Great time. And yes, I've been kind of teasing it a little bit on my socials too. And people calling me up asking me, are you having Billy Walters on this show? Yeah. So
another legend.
Yes. But this guy is the real deal. So happy to have him and I look forward to it.
Yeah. And so, we will get to Phil later in the show. But first, let's talk about a golf legend who was in looks like a pretty bad car accident yesterday morning. Tiger Woods was is a really bad accident out there in California. Did you catch that? Did you see it?
Of course. I was texting it. I actually was texting some people right away when I heard about it. And people don't know if it's real. It's almost like when Kobe died. It's like, oh man, is this real? It can't be real. And unfortunately, it was. So here you have, if not the best, one of the best, top three anyway. Probably listen, all the younger generation thinks he's number one. So, and he just might be. So This is one of the best golfers in the world. And, going through some tough times here these past couple of years with some different situations he has had. And we all wish the best and hope he recovers. And maybe not enough to play golf again, but just enough to live life again normally. And so.
Yeah, it looks like he had some damage to his legs, his knees. I'm sure he's already got a bad back, so I'm sure that kind of force in a car accident's not going to be good for him physically. But you never know. He's also a world-class athlete that he doesn't lack the drive and determination. So maybe it is something he could come back from.
Yeah. Well, let's go on to something else here. February is always an interesting time in the world of sports, but it's like that Tuesday of every week where it's just like, I don't know, like I don't like Tuesdays that much. I like to get the midweek out of there, get Wednesday, get into the weekend, and when we always have a lot more sports and just feels better. That's the kind of month February is. It's like a Tuesday to me. Anyway, just like the Super Bowl is over. We were all pumped up for the Super Bowl in the NFL season. And it's amazing that we got through this whole season. They had to move around some games here and there, but we did get through the whole season. But, the no football depression kind of sinks in a little bit. NBA is approaching the midpoint of the season from a game count anyway. But, this year's late start, it feels like the league is just starting to take shape, identifying the haves and the have-nots. So it's an interesting situation here. College basketball games, of course, fill the board. But in truth, everyone is just biding time until March Madness. We know what happened last year with March Madness. It was very disappointing that everything's just, I was on a live show at the time when they started canceling each of the conference tournaments, and then you knew that was going to happen for March Madness. So the PGA Tour, as we know, has officially begun, but everyone knows the season only really begins, in April. Like Augusta, the big tournament that everyone talks about, and it's something that I like to watch too. I love watching the Masters, and I like watching golf. I was saying something the other day to somebody. I know it's typically the most boring sports for some people, but golf I like to watch. I like to watch baseball too. Golf's that gentleman's game. It's the old professional sport that it's just so cool just to sit back and watch the golf on Sunday. To me, I love watching day 4, and some of the walk-up 18s have been historic ones over the years. All right, so let's get into also baseball. Baseball starts in about a month, so that looking forward to that also. Let me just tell you, it's a hard time to win overall. As with all sports, the earlier in the season, the more advantage you have. But you will see that in college football, especially the beginning when the press and the media and let's just face it, the handicappers know as much or more. As in my case, we know more than a lot of the bookmakers that put the lines out. So. Anyway, college basketball gets a little more difficult to cap, and I will play and give out fewer games to my Crack Wins members this time of the year. But so anyway, here we go.
So let me ask you: when without the NFL in full swing, and we've kind of touched on this before, so there's less opportunity for you to bet on. There's probably less homework that you're also doing, during the week, looking at the games and matchups and watching lines and stuff. So do you typically kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit during this time?
Well, listen,
and do you miss it if you do? I actually look forward to slowing down a little, but that's not until after March Madness. The first round I love. We've never had a losing March Madness. So
The second round I like playing. Sometimes it gets tougher when you're talking about the Elite Eight, the Final Four, even the championship game. Sometimes I won't have a play for those games because those teams have been looked at and watched so many times, especially during the tournament when it counts. The bookmakers sometimes they grasp the line. Maybe at the strongest point of the year that they'll grasp a line is during that Final Four in the championship game. But no, it's still foot to the metal to the pedal to the metal. Sorry, pedal to the metal because it's college basketball, so we look forward to still going on and pressing forward, especially March Madness. March Madness will definitely go full force, and maybe I'll even have a little bit of a stronger play or two, which is like a 3% play of your bankroll, or a little bit stronger. And it's only the only time of the year you can really do that is the beginning of a season or maybe the first round of March Madness.
Interesting. Craig, let me ask you something. Hearing you talk about betting and strategy, is there ever, I almost think of you as like a professional athlete in your realm, right? And so my question is for you is, do you feel you've reached sort of your full potential when it comes to betting? Is there such a thing? Like, are you constantly getting better at this, I guess is what I'm asking? Well,
considering, I'm not really a brag guy, but considering this college basketball season, we won like 4 months in a row. And I don't mean 4 months in a row. I mean like 17 weeks in a row. I have never done that. I have had streaks of winning weeks where I won 8, 9, 10 weeks in a row. But yeah, college basketball has absolutely felt fantastic this year. I don't know if anyone, including myself, can do better than that. I mean, we were up there like 65%. It was ridiculous. So no, I listen, you always strive to do better. I always tell anyone, I don't know anyone that could hit 60% for the season, every year. So a couple of years ago, I was the same thing. We had a year where we were the same. We were like 63% for the year, 62.7% or something like that for the year. And the next year we came back with a 59%, which is still a giant year. 59%. Oh my God. That's going to make people a lot of money, including myself. So this year we've actually popped up there again to the over 60% mark. So
that's awesome. Yeah. And then let me ask you this, is there, you've talked about how, I think I asked you before about pressure and you feel pressure from your players, from the people that are, on the Crack Wins app they're paying for the information and they're just kind of following you and trusting you, and you take that seriously and you really take it personal against yourself if you do have a losing day or a week, whatever. Is there a time in your head where you go, that's a lot of stress year in and year out, where do you look at it like, 5 more years of this and then I'm out? Like, is this the kind of thing, is there such a thing as do you retire from something?
No. And as far as, let me answer your question in a couple different parts here.
Yeah.
One, do I feel pressure from the players or the clientele or something? No, I don't. Anyone knows that's been with me, especially they've been with me since the beginning of college basketball this year. We're going to have the ups and downs, and that's going to happen. But in the end, if you just follow the betting strategies that you're supposed to in the bankroll management, you're going to make a lot of money for yourself. And that's happened for all my guys. I haven't really got too many complaints. It just doesn't happen like that. If you're a professional, you're in this for the long term. And that's what most of my guys are. So secondly, as far as myself for the future, I'm going to do this forever. This is what I do. I love betting sports. I love beating bookmakers. I love it's just what I do. I'll do this forever because there has to be some kind of spice of life. I mean, you look at people that they get to a certain level in life and they just don't stop. It's funny. People sometimes have goals though to make this amount of money and then that's it. Well, what happens after the first year when you make that kind of money? An idle mind is, I'm not going to say a devil's playground, but it's, you say, I miss kind of doing that. So you get up, let me play and let's get up to this level. Well, you get past 2, 3, 4 levels and it's just repetitive. You're going to do it forever. At least for me, I love, like I said, beating the bookmakers and winning in sports and helping a lot of people beat their bookmakers.
Well, that's a perfect segue. If you're looking at home and you're looking to beat the bookmakers and you follow Crack, every week we have to remind you that you should head over to WSN.com, because that is really one of the tools that helps you pull all this together. Right, Bill?
Yeah, for sure, John. One of the really cool things I like about doing the show is I get to promote a site that I actually go to all the time. I read it almost every day in my workday. I like reading the new articles, and it's a goldmine for advantage gamblers. It's got everything, not only the articles, but it's got the links, the promos, especially March Madness is coming up. There's going to be a lot of promos with a lot of these sports books. So some of these bonuses always shock me, and they're always over at WSN.com. I find bonuses there you can't find anywhere. So make sure you check it out. Go to WSN.com.
And when you're done checking that out, absolutely make sure you download what I call the Gambler's Bible, what he calls the Crack Wins app. Either way, you can't go wrong. Definitely download that app. It's on the App Store. It's on Google Play. College pro basketball, PGA golf season. He's not one dimensional, the Crack man. He's all sports. He's a winner in all sports. And if you don't want to believe me, like I said, hit up Jake Ellenberger on Twitter. He'll tell you firsthand, right?
Yeah, no, John, I do preach transparency. So, and I've told you how we started this season with college basketball. Well, my man, I am a man of my word. So after 17 non-losing weeks in a row, it's impossible. I don't know anyone can do that.
Right.
We actually ran well. Mathematically, you could have 5 years in a row of winning gambling, and you can't win 17 weeks in a row. But as my clients also know, I have a lot of them, and they would be the first ones to jump on me on Twitter or social media, and if I was lying about something like this. So the last couple of weeks, but especially last week, we hit a cold stretch. It's almost like things like after a winning season, it's a little bit of a slip, but it's not a slip. It's just almost a return to the mean a little bit. I mean, you can't hit 64, 65% all season. So, but some of the factors that college basketball handicappers are seeing for the first time really is these teams in smaller conferences playing back to back. The teams have had games canceled constantly due to COVID. A team with 20 games under their belt playing a team with 7 or 8 games under their belt, or a team that hasn't played in 25, 30 days. Different motivations for these 18 to 20-year-old kids. We know it's sometimes a little bit of a harder time now to find advantages. But listen, I'm not making excuses. We're going to win. Look at what we've done. Look what I've done this whole season under these same kind of situations. But however, now in February, it just changed a little bit, and it's just kind of normal. It's a kind of, listen, every February I always kind of think to myself, geez, February is a tough time of the year, but this particular time is a very unusual season because of the COVID and the cancellations and all the things that the back to back. So, like I said, traditionally we do very, 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 very well in postseason tournaments. So March Madness bracket, crackwins.com coming next month. Looking forward to it and looking forward to help a lot of people again.
And Crack, what's funny is you mentioned 17 winning weeks in a row, right? And for the most part, from what I see on Twitter and just from knowing you, you have a very loyal following, and they get it and they support you. But for that handful of morons that like to go and troll, it just shocks me. It's like 17 weeks in a row, like you said, it's almost impossible, right? Yeah. No one does it. Think about it. The Yankees don't win 17 in a row. Jordan doesn't win 17 in a row. LeBron doesn't win 17 in a row. 17 in a row in anything is so difficult to do. And yet the haters think that, sports betting, you should just win every single game, every single call, every single pick.
Yeah. Well, listen, that's not the clientele I'm looking for anyway. These the guys that are on, Twitter or somewhere else, wherever social media, using that anonymity and hiding behind the safety of their keyboard. I don't mean to say it like that, like a tough guy. I'm just saying that's what they are, though. They don't have the balls to use their own name and come after me or something like that. But that's fine, too, because to be honest with you, I don't feed into it. I'll just block them. If I block them, I don't have to hear from them again. And then that means they're not going to get the knowledge of my tweets and the future things that I have to say. And all it is to help. But then again, if it wasn't for, knockers and people that, come after you a little bit and haters, I guess that means you're doing something right.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
There you go.
Yeah. A little earlier, we sat down with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Phil Hellmuth, poker goat. And let's show the people what our interview with Phil was like. All right, Crack, we've been pumped up for this, and the moment has arrived. Our guest today is one of the most well-known, successful, professional poker players in the world. This guy's won 15 WSOP bracelets. He won the main event back in '89. He won it again in 2012, the World Series of Poker in Europe. He holds records. It's ridiculous. Most cashes, most final tables. This guy is a monster at the poker table, Crack. I should only wish that I could be half as good in my poker career as this guy. He was a 2007 inductee in the WSOP Hall of Fame. They call him the Poker Brat. And I speak of the man himself, Mr. Phil Hellmuth, is with us today. This is amazing.
My wife called right in the middle there, so I'm sorry, guys. Married 30 years. My wife's a Stanford doctor. I asked her to leave the hospital early because I need the car. And I haven't asked that in 2 or 3 years, so.
Oh, wow.
It's not that we don't have cars, but I mean, anyway, continue.
I love that, Phil. 30 years later, you're still saying I love you. And you're still saying I love you, dear. That's wonderful.
I feel like we should leave this all in because people think he's not a nice guy.
Keep it in. That's fine. I will say this about my wife. We've been married almost 31 years. And
wow.
And I'm very famous for telling the whole world I've never cheated on her. Very famous. And, when you become a celebrity, in 03, 04, I started getting a lot of attention. And then they think I'm a bad boy, which I'm actually, if you know me, I'm the nicest guy. But I have some charisma. And so then, and I'll go to a nightclub occasionally, but I'll sit in the owner's booth when I go in Vegas. I'll reach out to Victor, whoever, the biggest guys. And then there's always beautiful women after me. And then they Google me at the table. And it's kind of, so I mean, models and actresses, I've had some amazing opportunities and just have never done that. And I always tell myself, and you guys are going to laugh, I always tell myself, John, that I'm going to last 30 seconds and and I can't not tell my wife. So I'm completely fucked.
You're thinking with the right head.
I love it.
Sorry for the graphic stuff. I hope somebody can laugh at me.
Sorry. No, you're thinking with the right head. Good man. That's great. Awesome.
Phil, you mentioned before we were rolling, you mentioned that your best friend you met because he walked up to you during dinner.
Well, Bill Crack, I'll call him Bill. Bill was saying it must be a hassle to have people come up to you during dinners. And I said, actually, that's how I met my best friend. And it was like 2008. And Chamath Palihapitiya and Sheryl Sandberg, who's, the very famous billionaire Facebook, and her husband, Dave Goldberg, who we lost. And Chamath's old wife, Bridget, ex-wife. And the four of them came up to me and they said, hey, we live in Palo Alto. We play poker. Well, I started emailing with them. Well, they play 5-10. So that's like, that's like social poker. And I play poker for a living. And I'm like, oh my God, the stakes are nothing. But I went over and I just loved the group. And I just started hanging out with Chamath, and I became very competitive. And immediately he crushed me at poker when we were playing very small stakes. And then, and so we have this great relationship where Chamath Palihapitiya is my best friend. It's fun to watch him. He just passed me in Facebook in followers on Twitter. He's become this global legend now, a very famous billionaire who's, fighting for, all the little people out there. And he really is an amazing guy who's doing a lot of great stuff out there, really for the world. And I'm proud that he's my best friend. And, I was telling him the other day, who the hell can you turn to tell you you're screwing up? And, he's like, you. And so, so that relationship, we go over there and we hang out, and we don't talk about all the companies and all the SPACs. We just talk about, him and I and our relationships. with our women, and with Nat and my wife Kat, and and we can be very intimate and discuss things we really can't tell anybody else and stuff. It's really nice to have a best friend, and it's really nice to have a best friend who's crushing it. And but I don't know, that whole group David Sachs and Bill Lee and Bill Gurley, who was voted the best VC in the world, and and some of the NBA players that I brought 3 Warriors players to play with us over the years, and they can't play now because we're in a pandemic. But it's been really fun to find kind of a super group, and for them to accept me is an honor. And sometimes I have imposter syndrome like everybody else, and I'm like, wait, do I deserve to be with these guys? Do I belong in this group? And I think sometimes they do the same. And and it's been really nice.
That's great. It's funny. So many people have the wrong perception of you because they see your poker persona. And I mean, I don't know if you remember how I met you. I met you in the airport in Kentucky after the Kentucky Derby. And you were like always been my favorite player. And I don't normally walk up to people, obviously, because I know what it's like for you guys, growing up with my dad and stuff. But I was like, man, I can't let him get away. And I walked up to you and I introduced myself. You were the nicest guy in the world. You're a nice guy, Phil.
It's true. I mean, I think what happens is the poker world knows I'm one of the nicest guys in the poker world, which is great. So all my peers understand that. But unfortunately, the world doesn't understand that. So when I took the role of bad boy, whether intentionally or not, when I took the role of Poker Brat, whether intentionally or not, I always figured that, it made me a lot more famous because people remember the bad boys. But I always figured by 2007, the whole world would figure out that I'm the nicest guy. I'm the guy that's not an alcoholic. I'm the guy that doesn't do drugs. I'm the guy that's loyal to his friends and nice to everybody. And, and of course, no one really figured it out. It's 2021 now. Most people have figured it out, or at least questioned it along the way. But it's very weird to feel like you're one of the nicest guys in the poker world and have a lot of people out there think I'm an asshole.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Phil, when we have these household names on the show like yourself, I'm always interested in knowing how they got their start. What was it like before the spotlight? I grew up gambling and back in New Jersey and New York my whole life, and in a very East Coast aggressive family. How did you get your start? Did you play cards as a kid, or how did you get about, how did this happen?
I mean, the reason I'm the Poker Brat is because I'll try to tell the story quickly, is I'm the oldest of 5, and my father has a PhD, a JD, and an MBA. Okay, so all these letters, and I had ADD. So that's all the letters that explain very quickly. And so I couldn't get the grades my dad wanted. Now, my 3 younger sisters and my brother all did that. They all were able to get the grades that my dad respected. I wasn't. And so my dad and I were fighting at loggerheads all the time, and I was very strong-willed and very strong, and fought my father at every turn. And, and so that relationship, I mean, it's wonderful to have a super tight relationship with my dad. But back then we were at loggerheads, and, I had to be the example. They all were great at, athletics. They were all great at instruments. They all got great grades, straight A's, 3 of my sisters. And I couldn't do any of that. And so I think that then made me, my own sanity, my own self-esteem was then rested on whether or not I could win at games. Now, I had a competitive advantage. I'm older than all of them. So I discovered at a very early age the secrets to all these games. I think I play perfectly. Monopoly, I play all these games perfectly, and as perfectly as you could as a kid. And I learned quickly. And so if I ever did lose to my brother, who had to roll double 6s on the last roll, and he rolled it, I would go crazy. I'd act like a poker brat, because what else did I have to live for? I mean, I was the worst at this. I was the worst at that. I was the worst at the other thing. You know what I mean? All I had is games. And so that's how the Poker Brat developed. And that kind of translated. Even if I've won 15 world championships, and even if everybody, the public tells me how great I am, I still get caught in the moment. Tonight, I'm in a high stakes poker game. And right after this interview, and I will probably, if someone beats me for like a $50,000 pot, I'll probably go. Now, they love that. They love me, and they wouldn't have it any other way, because I've been playing with these guys for 10, 11 years. But, and so that's kind of how the Poker Brat developed. And then in college, Bill, I dropped out for poker. And then I remember there was one freaky night in my life where I was not a big drug guy, not a big drinker, but it was noon and I had a drink and I took a hit of pot and I'm at this freaking seedy bar in Madison, Wisconsin. And I'm playing pool for $20 a game. And all of a sudden, like a light turned on in my head. Is this your life? Are you going to be playing with two guys that are, and they're not giving away a penny at the pool. I was a big underdog, but that doesn't matter. Is this your life in a freaking bar at 3 p.m. by then? You know what I mean? And doing this shit, and I just remember saying, no, it's like that song, Many Days Go By. And so I remember I opened the door and boom, was just hit by all the sunlight reflecting off the snow. It had snowed, the snow was melting. And so it was like the light just went crazy. And I rushed back to my apartment. I called a taxi, rushed back to my apartment, and I wrote up all of this stuff, like this theory of, this pyramid of what I had to do to become the best in the world at poker. And I set myself on that goal and I wrote down lifetime goals. Number 1, become the greatest poker player of all time. And so I wrote down my long-term goals and I changed them and I changed them again. I spent hours and I wrote down this pyramid. How do I become the greatest? Well, I can't play craps and blackjack and all these casino games. And the second level, I have to eat and exercise. And the third level, money management, money management, money management. And so this moment in my life where I just decided, you're going to become the greatest poker player of all time, or at least put all of your effort and intention into that, just happened one night. And then it probably within a year or a year and a half, I won the World Series of Poker main event. And I won another big tournament. And all of a sudden I was on the map. Wow. And all of a sudden, and since then I've won more than anybody else in poker. But yeah, so,
great story.
So yeah, that's how I got into poker. And,
thanks for your candor. Right. Excellent.
Yeah, that's a great story.
That's great. What do you got for him, Jon?
So Phil, you just mentioned, you touched on money management, and that's something that Bill is always preaching. And I'm wondering, he doesn't, Bill doesn't seem to, obviously you never want to lose, but he takes the losses, I think, better than most, gamblers would. When you lose, is it the same kind of thing? Like, obviously you don't, no one wants to lose, but when you do, does it stick with you for a few days, or you just shake it off?
A big loss sticks with me for a few days, right? And I lost 10,000 last night in my online game. I've won fortunes in there. I've won millions. And so, and so I've won millions of dollars in my online game. It's just been an incredible year for me. I've won everything in sight for the last year. The losses do stick with me, but I will tell you, Bill understands this because he's been a gambler for a long time. It's not how much talent you have if you're going to be a gambler. It's how you manage your money. The most talented poker players in the world are oftentimes broke and have to get staked. And then you have guys that are, 80% talent level or 90%, and they live very comfortable lives. So I tell people, more important than poker talent and more important than sports betting talent, I think Bill would agree with me, money management, money management, money management. Right, Bill?
Absolutely. It means everything to me. I also have 6-figure swings almost every single day, especially on the weekend. I have easily six-figure swings. And it's all about the next day starting over again. I know I have a mathematical edge to what I do. You're in a field where you have a mathematical edge and people want to give you their money. I'm in a field where I'm thrown out of many sports books in Las Vegas, been thrown out of thousands of sports books nationwide, bookmakers, William Hill, stations, a lot of people don't want my business because when I bet something, it's going to move in my favor. So I understand exactly what you mean. But in your business, I think it's great. These guys want to sit down with Phil Hellmuth. Just think about it. You said your local game last night where you've won millions online. Who would want to sit down and they know their negative expectation long-term is a losing one, but hey, they got to play with Phil Hellmuth. It's unbelievable.
It really is crazy. And what you said is true, Bill. I think of it like with blackjack players. They become too good, they get kicked out. Yeah. And I become too good and I get kicked in. And so, but I actually think if you look at the top 10 players in the world, there's only one or two that are invited to every game. The big games in Houston, New York, Bay Area, LA, and I'm one of the guys. And I think I figured it out a little bit. They want the story of playing with me, but they're also entertained. And also, I keep up with them, right? I'm on 12 advisory boards. We launched 3 SPACs, and so I'm just crushing it. So I can talk business with them on all levels of business. Because I've been sitting down with Chamath for 11 years, playing poker with the greatest businessmen on the planet and listening to their conversations. And so I think I fit in. And but you're right, though. They want me there. And if there's a game in the Bay Area and I'm thinking about not showing up, they'll get mad at me. Wow. So I really haven't missed a game. There's times I'm really tired and I'm like, oh, hon, I'm not sure I'm going to do well tonight. And I'm not sure I want to go. And then I go and I think that helps focus me a little bit. But I want to be with those guys. And I want to be with the guys in New York. And I want to be with the guys in LA. And I'm very fortunate that I'm invited in. I think that the other top player who's invited to every game, I won't mention his name because he hates all form of press. He doesn't want people to know how much he's won. He's hiding everything. And I'm just straight up. Cool. This is me. Cool. And for some reason, people want me around and it is a blessing. Cool. And I feel bad for you, Bill, because you have a tougher road to hoe than me there.
Yeah, no. Listen, I travel back to New Jersey all the time because at least I'm betting 10,000 a game there, and the game I lay 3 and it closes 4, and they're taking my bet. So it's going to be, my wife and I got some talking to do because I may be moving back there. So we'll see what happens. But again, you're a professional poker player. I'm a sports bettor. We're cut from the same risk taker's cloth, basically. Yep. You've seen the explosion of legal sports betting here since the court struck down the federal ban in May of 2018. Now legal in 23 states. So on the other hand, online poker is legal in 6 and growing, though. Where do you see the future of the legal online poker going in the United States? Do you see it, catching up and 20, 30 states be legal eventually?
Yeah, it's been very frustrating for me to watch, poker not get legalized, right? And it cost me a lot of money, right? Sure. I mean, I probably lost the 15, 20 million when the ban was enforced. It really cost me a lot of money. I had some pieces of some sites, and so the frustration level there of not having poker online, which is a game of skill, legalized is. And you would think that during the pandemic they would have been able to get that done. So I do think that eventually you're going to, with sports betting, I think poker is going to follow in very closely behind that. I think that's going to happen. And I think we're going to have some super sites back in the US. And, and it's been interesting, for one of the SPAC deals I did, and that's where we put a company out there and we raised 290 million, and said, hey, we're not going to tell you what we're going to use it for. That's how you think of the SPAC. Wow. And then I brought the deal in. I brought Rush Street Interactive, which is the biggest casino in the USA, into that deal. We just got into Michigan and Virginia 3 weeks ago and 3.5 weeks ago. And it's been a lot of fun. And I was rewarded with $2 million in fees for that deal. And I already had at least $1 million in stock. So it's been fun to watch that stock RSI go crazy. And so I'm very engaged with that market. I'm trying to send out my own sports picks, Bill. And my pick of the weeks, I think I went 12-7 or something. I'm pretty good at picking one NFL game, but I'm really bad at trying to pick 4 or 5. I like a little action. So, but I've been pretty good at one. So that was a very respectable record.
It's the toughest sport to beat. So if you're telling me you're 12-7, number one, so I don't bet too much NFL. It's too hard to beat NFL sides.
Too hard.
It's too hard. I'm betting college sports, small market sports, and WNBA, sports that I have inside word on. So you're telling me you went 12-7 over the season. That's amazing. Good job.
I think it's amazing. I mean, it's funny to me when people make fun of that. What do you mean 12-7 sucks? I'm like, what? I was just trying to get 2 games over 500. I thought it would be amazing. So that was good. And I posted all my picks because and a lot of people started then asking for my picks every week. But I think also it's important for guys like you, Bill, and me to set ourselves up as people that know something about sports, because that could lead to some sponsorships in other areas for us.
Sure. Absolutely. Cool.
I'm nowhere near your level, but I do like the NFL. And, I had Jordan Spieth this weekend. I made one bet
Oh,
I had
my
him at
God.
20 to 1.
Oh,
He didn't win,
oh.
but I'm going this
It's right
week.
there.
I'm going with Koepka this week. I really think Koepka's going to win. I have him at 26 to 1.
It's good odds.
But I like this. I think sports betting and poker in America is, I know the English make fun of us, right? The English are like, we would never let our people tell us how we can spend our money.
Right.
We've been around for 1,000 years.
That's right.
And you Americans are so dumb. First, the politicians said you can't drink alcohol. Now they're saying you can't play poker online and bet sports. They laugh at us. All these other countries laugh at us.
Oh, man. For sure. For sure. All right, Jon, what do you got?
Phil, when you first met your wife, did she understand what your lifestyle consisted of? And was there like a learning curve for her, or what was that like? Because a lot of women might not be down with this.
My wife, I met her, and within 3 months she was pregnant. I talk about this in my book. She hates it when I talk about that. And she was just a super, super, super bright, beautiful, smart, amazing person, and I was very lucky to find her. Now I was world champion of poker then. So, one day she was walking down the street when we were dating, and I was on the front cover of the Wisconsin State Journal, like in 1989 or whatever. And she's like, this is my boyfriend. And I bought this penthouse condominium on the lake, one of the best places in Matt, beautiful. And so I already had a lot of money. And I think that helped persuade her that there was some, but it was not easy. I mean, I was young. I was way too arrogant, way too cocky, and made a lot of mistakes. But my mistakes were nowhere near the mistakes that the other guys made. I went through all of my money. Kind of. I still had a $200,000 condo that I owned outright, and I'd paid all my taxes. I still had 2 or 3 cars and some money. And I think a lot of guys would actually go into debt and borrow money. I never did that. And I just kind of drew the line, and I worked hard. I drove up to Escanaba, Michigan every weekend for 3-4 days to play small stakes games and make money. I put in the effort. I put in the time. And, now we live in this amazing house in Northern California, and I'm doing all these amazing deals but I mean, it was the 90s wasn't super easy. It was pretty easy for me, but I mean, how do you tell your wife in 1999, oh, Ted Forrest is staking me right now. All right. Yes, we're still worth $1 million on paper or whatever, but and she'd be like, on the 27th of the month, how are we going to pay our bills? And I'd just be yawning. Oh, Ted's going to send some money whenever I call him, and so she's a normal human being. It's like, oh my God, I have to write the checks in 3 days and there's no money in the account. I'm just yawning. Oh, money. And I just felt like money would never be an issue for me in my life. I always felt that way, and it never really has been. But how do you then, let your beloved know that, hey, money's not going to be an issue when there's no money in the account on the 28th. And I finally had called Ted. Hey, Ted, you really need to send us 10,000, and he'd get around to it a day or two later, and, and all the bills are paid. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I could sell these stocks or do this, but no stress. And my poor wife had to deal with all that. She's just gotten back from, she just brought me the car, as I mentioned earlier in the interview. Thank you, honey.
Very nice. Very nice.
That's awesome.
You talk about some sports betting. And now that I actually read up on you a little bit, doing a little sports betting. I love betting. I'll bet NFL season win totals have done very well at them over the years. Plus I can get down a lot of money on them too. So I know that's one of your fortes.
That's my thing. I've won every single year ever since Peyton Manning went to the Broncos. And I'm like, and the number was 8.
8 wins.
$1.50.
I read it and I'm like, wow, he bet 8 wins. And they went to the Super Bowl that year, I think, right?
Yes.
And you had over 8 wins.
They went from Tim Tebow to Peyton Manning. Now, of course, Peyton Manning had surgery, and people were worried. And I thought, wow, even if he comes in game 5, they have an amazing defense. They went 8-8 with Tim Tebow. Wow. Not that I'm disrespecting Tebow, but he was not, and so I was like, oh my God. So I think I bet 10,000 on that. Yep. And for me, that was a huge sports bet. And every year on NFL totals, something stands up. So this year, Miami
over 6 wins.
Miami to win.
Right.
Yeah, it was over. It might've been over 5 wins.
Wow.
I'm like, what the hell?
I think they won 10 wins this year, by the way.
Correct. So, and then I bet Tampa Bay to win over 9.5. I'm like, listen, they had a great year with Winston, or what's his name? The quarterback from last year.
Oh, Jameis Winston.
Jameis Winston. Yeah. Winston. Yeah, they had a great year. They had a good year with him, and their defense I thought was top notch. So that was my second bet. And so, yeah, I've won 8 years or 10 years in a row betting NFL totals. To me, something always stands out on the board. My only issue is I haven't bet enough, Bill. I'm still betting 10,000 and 5,000.
You got to bet more than that. Compared to your bankroll, you should bet more than that. And you've done well every year. I see a quote here. It said, I've never had a losing year NFL totals. That's fun for me. It's a season-long sweat. Let's ask you now, is there anything a little bit early for us for next season that you have?
I haven't looked. It was funny. Initially when I examined last year, I liked the Patriots for about 1 minute until I saw their schedule. And luckily I didn't. Luckily I went with Miami and Tampa Bay. It didn't make sense. And my friend talked me off Green Bay. I really thought Green Bay would have a good year. So that was a winner I would have had.
Yep.
And I didn't realize it until game one. You probably saw the same thing I did, Bill. Game one with nobody. For Aaron Rodgers to be able to stand at the line and change to play 3 times, I was like, they're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah.
No crowd noise.
So you actually would have went 3-0. You would have won them all. You would have went 3-0.
Yeah. And so whatever. I was happy to get those bets down. I haven't looked at the lines for next year yet, but I'll have a long discussion with the world's worst sports bettor, Mike the Mouth Mattiso, who's lost $6 million. But he has helped me kind of with NFL totals. At least we're thinking the right way.
Oh, really?
He knew that Miami had won 7 out of their last 8 games last year or something.
Yeah.
And we just
Phil, that's what Crack does with me. He just asks me who I like, and then he just goes the opposite way, and he's very, very successful doing that.
But Mike's actually helping him, though. With the
NFL totals, he helps me because he knows a lot, because he watches every game like I do. So NFL totals, he's knowledgeable. But when it comes to the NFL, I like to fade Mike because I like to bet against his, especially his second and third picks. But I find it interesting that, I'll talk to the same 2 or 3 guys every year about NFL totals, and we discount that. I mean, the year before, I know that Green Bay getting a new coach, or was this 2 years ago, Green Bay getting a new coach was huge to me, and they were on the board at 8.5. What did they win that game? 12 or something? I was like, this is a lot, because this new coach is actually going to pay attention to, the important stuff. And maybe the old coach might have cost the team a couple of games.
Are you pretty active on Twitter? I actually went back and forth with Mike on Twitter, Mattiso on Twitter. Are you pretty active on Twitter? Is that you yourself posting every day?
I'm super active on Twitter. It's me. I see people are like, hey, Phil likes everything I say. I don't really think it's him. It's a service. No, that's my own Twitter.
Good.
Listen, I was the second poker player on Twitter.
Wow.
I liked it. I thought it would be big. Wow. And so I started way back when. I'm also on Instagram now, but that's about 50% of my Twitters I put on IG.
Yeah, me too. I'm a Twitter guy. I can't get.
I have not done TikTok yet.
TikTok's incredible. Get on TikTok.
I have not done Clubhouse.
You could have 20 million followers on TikTok. I'm not even kidding. That. It's easy to explode on TikTok or Clubhouse too. Yeah.
Cool. What else you got there, John? Before we close,
Bill, my last question for you is have you played poker in Vegas since COVID with the plexiglass and the masks? And is it a totally different game for you? Because I don't like it at all.
Well, I got to say, I really enjoyed it. And they just had a World Poker Tour in Miami. They had 1,500 players, like a record. So people are really waiting to get out and play. And they had the plexiglass up. And if you got it from the table, you had to wash your hands. Really good rules in place there. I actually didn't mind the plexiglass, but I only played once. I couldn't help it. It was a 2-400 game with a bunch of people I've known forever. And we just laughed and had fun the whole time. Everybody had masks on the plexiglass. And I enjoyed that game. But I filmed in Vegas a bunch of times without plexiglass. That's different, though. We're in the Poker Go studios. We take tests in advance. The Gaming Commission has cleared a lot of stuff. And I've won a lot of money filming in Vegas in 2020. My wife, has had the vax. And so I'm hoping that I get it, at the end of February. In California, they're moving to new designations all the time. I'm trying not to travel much. but you may have heard, John, that, the poker world's going crazy because I just accepted Daniel Negreanu,
Yes.
Real Kid Poker, as my next opponent in a high stakes duel. And so that's going to happen in the middle of March. And that's going to be fun. And I mean, already the poker world's gone crazy.
How do we get to watch that, Phil? How do we get to see? Do we see that?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. That's true. Poker Go. It's only on the Poker Go app, which is $10 a month. Okay. And but just that match alone, I think, is going to be worth $80 that you would pay on Poker Go.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
It's going to be like probably 2 or 3 hours long. A lot of battling back and forth. It's going to be fun. And
it's your own money, right? This is, you guys are playing for your own money, correct?
Yeah. The last time I realized, the last match I played, I won the first 2. And so the last match was for 400,000. And I realized I'd only sold about 20,000 of myself in that last match. And I'm like, oh my God, this is 380,000 of like, and so, I beat Antonio 3 in a row. He had to put up 50, 100 and 200. Wow. And I realized I made about 300,000 because I just didn't sell a lot of pieces. It's kind of also baffling to me. I just keep winning and they keep underestimating me. I think I've won 28 out of 30 times filming poker. Wow. And they always think I'm going to lose. I don't understand what's going on, but they don't understand the way I play, which I think is actually a really good thing in the long run for me. But then you don't get much credit from the top players in the short run, and that hurts. But they always
they've made you the Rodney Dangerfield of poker. No respect.
I mean, nothing like that. I mean, it's like I get 99% of the world thinks I'm great at poker, but it's the 1% that I really want, or the half of 1 or the 10th of 1% that I really want to acknowledge what I've done, that won't give me credit. And they
won't give you credit, but they know.
They know for me, though, because I'm like, I feel like I have to prove myself every week. It's a little frustrating, though.
Cool. Well, Phil, let me close out with this. This is very close to me, too, this thing. I'm a kind of a big, tough guy from New York, but I'm a teddy bear inside. And I used to watch poker with my father and his uncles all the time, old school Italian guys and Hungarian Jewish guys sitting around. They were real tough. We used to go to the Bronx almost every weekend, into the wee hours in the morning. But before my dad passed, we would actually watch poker together on TV. And I'll tell you, you were always his favorite. And
thank you so much for that, Bill.
When I moved to Las Vegas, at least 3-4 times a week, I would call my dad. I was very close to my father. And he would, as he got sick, his conversations would still be about poker. And it was what was on TV the night before. And he always loved the entertainment that you and Matisal, but especially you, gave him. So I to be able to tell you in person and to be able to talk to my dad like that, it means a lot. I wanted to say thank you for that and bringing some fun
welcome.
To our living room.
And I will say thank you for telling me that. I do find it interesting that a lot of the people that are older seem to see through all the bullshit a lot sooner, right? And I think they knew I was a good guy way back when. And thank you for mentioning that. And thank you to your father for being a fan of mine and seeing through the bullshit. Thank you.
He did. And you made his life a little more manageable towards the end of his life. So I want to thank you and appreciate you for coming on Wisecracks with us here.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Phil. Bill, I could seriously listen to Phil Hellmuth talk for hours. For hours, I could listen to that guy.
Yeah, I'm glad that we had him on here. I had a little bit of a reserve at first, but of course we want him on there. But he seems like a really good guy, and that makes me happy.
Yeah, he is a good guy. And you would also like to know, Bill, he's a good tipper. I've seen it in person. He's a good tipper.
Well, that's how I rate people in life. I could be wrong. I've said it before.
Yeah.
You take care of the average guy, regular guy. I've been one of those my whole life. So, working behind counters when I was a kid, I worked in restaurants when I was a kid. So, taking care of people in the service industry, I love it. So it's because there's a lot of these celebrities and a lot of these athletes that just don't do that. So it's good to hear that Phil does that. Fantastic. Yeah.
Bill, you got any Twitter questions this week for us? I think you have one from a past guest, right?
I actually do. I actually have a good one. It's Howie Schwab. So how can Devin Booker miss out on the All-Star game? That's one of the things people are talking about right now. So I guess he missed out there, and he's obviously on the selection, and so people are a little bit upset. What's your take on that, Jon?
My take is, basketball is one of those unique sports. It's not like baseball. Baseball's got so many guys on a roster. There's 25, 26 guys on a roster, and it expands, during the playoffs. So for an all-star baseball team, you're looking at 25, 30 guys, on a squad. Basketball is a little different. The fans vote in the starting five. So there's really only 7 spots up for grabs in basketball, after you get done with the fan voting. So, that's selected by the coaches. There's always going to be someone that gets the snub. It's easy. I know if you're a Devin Booker fan, it's easy to say, hey, you throw your hands up and be like, what the heck, but then you got to take yourself out of that and say, okay, if you put him in, then who else is missing?
Right. So if someone's
always going to get snubbed.
Yeah. Someone's always, and then
really multiple people.
If you take someone else out, then they're going to be upset, and people are going to be upset about that too. So I guess it's a tough decision, and a really good question. Thank you to Howie Stump to Schwab, previous guest here on Wisecrack. So thank you very much, and cool. Well, let me leave the fans and everyone with, there's I'm not going to say it's a big fight, but there's a big name, Canelo Alvarez, fighting this weekend. Yeah. He's anywhere from like 50 to, I seen 100 to 1. It's funny. I seen 100 to 1, but yet you have to lay 100 to 1 if you bet on the comeback. You only get 12 to 1. That's real nice odds, huh? Real nice in between there. But some places are 50 to 1 comeback. 20 to 1. That's more along the lines of the mathematics behind it. That's a really a couple of the good big spots have like minus 50 to 1 comeback, 21 to 1 I've seen. So, but then again, you're not going to catch me laying 50 to 1 on anyone because as the great Teddy Atlas, my buddy, says, there could be a headbutt, just an accidental headbutt. And now maybe it's in a spot where he can't even see and has to quit the fight. Yeah. It could just be an accidental, or maybe it's not an accidental headbutt. And you just don't know what can happen. There could just be a cut just from fighting. There could be a cut, a weird cut from the glove to a certain point of the eye or whatever, and they can't fix it or stitch it up. And now you have to win 50 fights in a row to win back your money. I'm not doing it. So people like to also bet that big favorite by knockout. In this situation, you have to lay like 10 to 1. I'm still not doing it. I'm not laying 10 to 1. He gets knocked out. Who knows? Maybe the goal of this guy he's fighting is just to survive and last the whole 10
go the distance.
12 rounds, whatever it is.
Hug him, tie him up. Yeah.
Yeah. So I listen, if you have to bet anything on a boxing match because you see a big name like Canelo, he's also a fan favorite, maybe you throw a peanut or something on something that like minus. You could actually bet like the over-under is 4.5 rounds. So if you have to bet, and I'm not even saying to bet, maybe look at, it's not going to go past 5 rounds. Pick one of those first rounds, 1, 2, 3, or 4, that Canelo knocks him out and get yourself back 10 to 1 for a little peanut bet just to have some fun or something. So
right, and that is a fun bet to make because it's an adrenaline.
That 3 minutes you're rooting, you're screaming and yelling, and But I don't. That's a heavily juiced market too. So I'm not going to be doing it. I'm just saying if you have to bet it because it's on TV or you want to watch the fight or whatever it may be. There you go. So
why do they make these fights to begin with? Like, I always want, like, I'm curious what your thoughts are. Is boxing corrupt? I mean, it's to some level, it just feels like it just is. I mean, I feel like they baby these guys. They build these records up. The boxing model, I think, is broken, right?
Oh, in that sense, you're spot on. Building records up, right? 100%.
Well, before I go, let me just remind everybody one last time to download the Crack Wins app. Get all of Crack's wisdom. Get in the winner's circle. I did this year, and it's been a game changer. A couple of our friends that we talk about on the show as well. So make sure you download the app, or you can just go to crackwins.com. It's got everything you need right there. Bill, we've reached that time, unfortunately. Yes. It's time to go. Yes.
I always like to close with that parlay of the crackwins.com and Crackwins app along with WSN.com. So there's my final parlay of the day.
All right, man. As always, guys, we will see you next week.
Thank you.
See you, everybody.